The morning alarm screamed across the dormitory like a dying animal. Alex Turner rolled out of his narrow bunk and hit the cold metal floor with both feet. Around him, 200 other cadets were doing the same thing. The difference was that most of them had 4 arms or wings, or could breathe underwater without a helmet. Alex was just human. 3 months ago, he had been working in a factory on Earth, making parts for spaceships he would never see. Then the letter came. The Galactic Military Academy wanted him. Nobody knew why. Even Alex didn't know why. The Academy sat on Ceres Station, a massive rotating wheel in space. It was neutral ground where young warriors from dozens of species learned to fight together. The best of the best came here. At least that's what everyone thought until Alex arrived. His roommate Borin was already putting on his armor. The Tathari had 4 arms and could move faster than Alex could blink. His people were known across the galaxy as perfect soldiers. Borin had never lost a fight in his life. "You are slow again, human," Borin said without looking at Alex. His voice sounded like gravel falling down a metal pipe. Alex grabbed his gear from the locker. His uniform was standard issue, just like everyone else's, but on him it looked wrong. Too big in some places, too small in others. Human bodies weren't designed for alien military equipment. "I'm trying," Alex said. Borin made a sound that might have been laughter. "Trying is not enough here. You either succeed or you die." The cafeteria was a chaos of different species eating different foods. The Brutari needed raw meat, and lots of it. They were 8 feet tall and built like living tanks. Their home world had 3 times Earth's gravity, so they could crush a human without thinking about it. The Vespians ate some kind of glowing liquid that smelled like flowers. They were thin and fast, with large eyes that could see in the dark. Their reflexes were so quick they could dodge laser fire. The Mindari didn't eat at all during meals. They absorbed energy directly from the station's power grid. They were the smartest species in the galaxy and could read thoughts from across a room. Alex ate something that looked like gray paste and tasted worse. Human food wasn't available, so he made do with basic protein supplements. He sat alone at a small table. "In the corner, look at it," one of the Brutari cadets said loudly. "The Academy must be desperate if they're taking pets now." Several other aliens laughed. Alex kept eating his gray paste and pretended not to hear. The first class was combat theory. Professor Grimm was a Vorthon with 6 legs and a voice that could shatter glass. He had fought in 12 wars and killed more enemies than most planets had population. "Today we discuss the Battle of Kepler 7, Professor Grimm announced. "Who can tell me why the Zephyrian fleet failed?" A dozen hands and claws shot up. Professor Grimm pointed at a Mindari cadet. "They underestimated their enemy's defensive capabilities," the Mindari said in a voice like music. "Correct. And what should they have done differently?" "This time, Vespian answered. "Better reconnaissance. They should have sent scouts first." Alex raised his hand. Professor Grimm looked at him like he was a bug that had crawled onto his desk. "Yes, human?" "They could have retreated when they realized the mistake," Alex said. "Saved their ships for another battle." The classroom went quiet. Professor Grimm's 6 eyes all focused on Alex. "Retreat?" Professor Grimm said the word like it tasted bad. "You suggest that a proud military force should run away?" "Sometimes running away is the smart thing to do," Alex said. He could feel everyone staring at him. A Brutari cadet named Thok stood up. He was 9 feet tall and covered in scars. "Humans have no honor," Thok said. "They think only of saving their own skin." "That's not what I meant," Alex started to say. "Silence," Professor Grimm said. "Cadet Alex will explain to the class why retreat is preferable to glorious death." Alex felt his face turn red. "It's not about glory. It's about winning the war, not just one battle. If you lose all your ships being glorious, you can't protect your people." More silence. Then Thok laughed, a sound like boulders falling. "Tut. Human thinks war is a game. Thok said. Something you can win or lose like children playing. Professor Grimm made a note on his tablet. Alex had a feeling it wasn't a good note. The rest of the day wasn't any better. In physical training, Alex couldn't keep up with the Vespians. In weapons practice, the Brutari broke every target while Alex missed half of his shots. In navigation, the Mindari calculated jump coordinates in their heads while Alex struggled with the computer. By evening, Alex was exhausted. He sat on his bunk and stared at a message from his family back on Earth. His little sister had sent a picture of herself, wearing his old-school jacket. His mom asked how he was doing. He didn't know what to tell them. "You did poorly today," Boren said. He was cleaning his weapons with 2 hands while reading a tactical manual with the other 2. "I know," Alex said. "The instructors think you are a mistake. Some kind of error in the selection process." Alex looked at his roommate. "What do you think?" Boren was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I think you are strange. Your people are strange, but you do not give up easily. Is that good or bad?" "I do not know yet." That night, Alex couldn't sleep. Through the small window in their room, he could see the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere out there was home. But this was where he was now. This was what he had to do. The next morning, the alarm screamed again. Alex hit the floor running. Around him, 200 other cadets did the same thing. The difference was that Alex was getting faster. He still wasn't as strong as a Brutari or as quick as a Vespian. He still couldn't read minds like a Mindari. But every day, he got a little bit better. Every day, he learned something new. Every day, he refused to quit. The other cadets noticed. Some of them laughed. Some of them whispered behind his back. But a few of them started to watch him with something that might have been curiosity. Alex. Turner was just human. But maybe, in a galaxy full of perfect warriors, being just human was enough. The announcement came during breakfast, delivered by Commander Voss himself. The 3-eyed Caltharian never left his office except for the most important occasions. His presence in the cafeteria made every conversation stop. "Cadets, Commander," Voss said, his voice carrying across the vast room without amplification. "In 7 days you will face the Crucible." Alex nearly choked on his protein bar. Around him, cadets from every species went completely still. Even the Brutari stopped eating, which never happened. The Crucible was legend. Every cadet knew about it, but none of them knew exactly what it involved. Alumni weren't allowed to talk about it. The only thing anyone knew for certain was that some cadets didn't make it through. "You will be divided into teams of 12, Commander Voss continued. "Each team will defend a sector of Station Omega against enemy forces. The simulation will last exactly 24 hours. Your performance will determine whether you graduate or spend another year here." A Mindari cadet raised her hand. "Sir, what are the victory conditions?" Commander Voss smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. "Survive as long as possible. Show honor in defeat. Die well if you must." That was when Alex realized something the others hadn't figured out yet. The Crucible wasn't designed to be won. It was designed to test how each species faced certain death. Over the next few days, teams were announced. Alex watched as the best cadets were grouped together. Thok got paired with 11 other top fighters. The Mindari Genius Wave was teamed with the smartest strategists. The fastest Vespians formed their own unit. Alex got the leftovers. His team included Nira, a healer whose people had never fought a war in their entire history. She spent most of her time in the medical bay, helping injured cadets recover faster. She was kind and gentle and completely useless in combat. There was Old Pike, a veteran rock folk who had failed the Crucible 3 times already. His stone-like skin was cracked with age, and he moved like continental drift. He was tough as a mountain, but about as fast as one, too. Tim was a young flyer whose wings had been damaged in an accident. He could barely glide, let alone achieve the aerial superiority his species was known for. Without his wings, he was just a frightened kid far from home. The rest of the team was equally hopeless. Beck was the Aquarian who needed water every few hours, or she'd dry out. Stone was a crusher whose strength was legendary, but he was also completely deaf and communicated only through vibrations in the ground. Ghost was a shade who could turn invisible, but only when no one was looking at him. "We are the reject squad," Boren observed. He had been assigned to Alex's team, which told Alex everything he needed to know about how the instructors viewed his roommate's potential. "That's not very encouraging," Alex said. They had 3 days to prepare. Alex watched the other teams practice in the simulation rooms. They moved like machines, every action coordinated and perfect. They knew exactly what they were doing because their species had been doing it for thousands of years. Brutari formed defensive walls and held them until death. Vespians conducted fighting retreats, making the enemy pay for every inch. Mindari used their telepathy to coordinate complex strategies. Each species had a doctrine, a way of war passed down through generations. Humans had no doctrine. Earth's military history wasn't taught at the Academy because Earth's military history didn't matter. Humans were newcomers, primitives who had barely figured out space travel. Alex spent hours in the Academy's library, reading everything he could find about the Crucible. The records were mostly classified, but he found fragments, references to acceptable losses, and species-typical responses. Numbers that showed survival times for different races. The longest any team had ever lasted was 18 hours. That was a Brutari unit that literally fought until the last soldier was dead. The shortest was 47 minutes, achieved by a group of scholars from the peaceful quill species who surrendered immediately. Most teams lasted between 4 and 8 hours. On the night before the Crucible, Alex's team gathered in an empty classroom. They looked like the most pathetic fighting force in galactic history. "I have been thinking," Old Pike said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Perhaps this time will be different." "How?" Nira asked. She was trying to be brave, but Alex could see she was terrified. "Because we have something the other teams do not have," Pike said. He looked at Alex. "We have a human." "I'm not special," Alex said. "No," Boren agreed. "You are not stronger or faster or smarter than the others. But you are strange. Your thinking is strange." Tim fluttered his damaged wings nervously. "Strange how?" Alex thought about it. "I guess I don't think about things the way you do. When I see a problem, I don't look for the right answer. I look for any answer that works." "That is what I mean," Boren said. "The rest of us think like our ancestors. We do what our species has always done. You think like yourself." Ghost shimmered into visibility. "But what good is thinking differently if we're all going to die anyway?" Alex was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Who says we have to die?" The room went silent. Finally, Old Pike spoke. "The Crucible is unwinnable, young human. It has always been unwinnable. That is the point." "Maybe," Alex said. "But just because nobody's ever won doesn't mean nobody ever can." Stone tapped out a message in ground vibrations. Boren translated. "He says you are either very brave or very stupid." Alex grinned. "Maybe both." They spent the rest of the night talking about tactics, about possibilities, about hope. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, Alex felt like he was part of a real team. Tomorrow they would face the impossible. Tomorrow they would probably fail. But tonight, for the first time in the Academy's 800-year history, a team was planning not just to survive the Crucible, but to beat it. Station Omega materialized around them with the hum of simulation technology. Alex found himself standing in what looked like a real space station, complete with metal walls, artificial gravity, and the distant vibration of life support systems. The simulation was so perfect he could smell the recycled air. His team was spread across Sector 7, the worst possible assignment. Their section included the station's garbage disposal, sewage treatment, and waste management systems. While other teams defended critical areas like the command center or weapons control, Alex's group got the space equivalent of a bathroom. Through the large observation windows, Alex could see the enemy fleet approaching. It was massive beyond imagination. Hundreds of warships stretched across the darkness like a metal storm. Each ship was the size of a city, bristling with weapons that could crack planets in half. "By the ancient stones," Old Pike whispered. "How are we supposed to fight that?" The answer was simple. They weren't. This was the point where teams were, supposed to realize the hopelessness of their situation and prepare for honorable death. Instead, Alex started looking for something else entirely. "Nira," he called to the healer. "You know medical systems, right? Life support, environmental controls?" "Yes, but why would that matter? We're all going to be dead in an hour." "Maybe not. Can you access the station's environmental data? I need to know about power distribution, air recycling, water systems." While Nira worked at a console, Alex turned to Stone. The massive crusher communicated through ground vibrations, tapping out messages with his feet. Boren translated. "He wants to know why you are not preparing weapons." "Because weapons won't help us," Alex said. "Look at that fleet. We could have the best weapons in the galaxy and it wouldn't matter. They have 1,000 ships. We have 12 people. Tim fluttered his broken wings anxiously. "So what do we do? Just give up?" "No," Alex said firmly. "We think differently." He moved to the main tactical display and started studying the enemy formation. The other teams would be looking at weapon signatures, shield strengths, and attack patterns. Alex was looking at something else entirely. "There," he said, pointing at the display. "Look at their supply lines." Ghost shimmered into visibility beside him. "What about them?" "They're stretched thin. That fleet is huge, but it's far from home. They need fuel, food, ammunition, replacement parts, and look at this." Alex highlighted a series of smaller ships scattered throughout the enemy formation. Supply vessels. Everything that fleet needs to keep fighting comes from those ships. "So?" Old Pike asked. "So what happens if those ships disappear?" The team gathered around the display as Alex explained his idea. It was crazy. It was impossible. It went against every rule of military engagement ever written. It was also the only plan that might actually work. The first part was the hardest. Alex needed to convince his team to do something that went against their basic nature as civilized beings. He needed them to commit suicide. Not real suicide, of course. They were in a simulation. But the plan required them to sacrifice their virtual lives in ways that would horrify military commanders across the galaxy. "You want us to strip our entire sector?" Beck asked. As an Aquarian, the idea of wasting resources went against everything she believed. Everything, Alex confirmed. Life support, power systems, structural supports, everything that isn't bolted, down. And some things that are. "But that will kill us," Tim protested. "Eventually, yes, but not right away. We'll have maybe 20 minutes of life support if we're careful. That's all we need." Nira looked sick. "Alex, this is madness. Suicide attacks are forbidden by every military code in the galaxy." "Since when do we care about military codes?" Alex asked. "We're the reject squad, remember? Nobody expects us to follow the rules anyway." That got a few grim chuckles. Old Pike tapped his stone fingers against the wall, thinking. 3 times I have failed this test," he said slowly. 3 times I have done what my people always do. Stand firm, hold the line, die with honor. Perhaps it is time to try something different." One by one, the others agreed. Even Nira, who had never hurt anything in her life, nodded her acceptance. They had 15 minutes before the enemy fleet reached firing range. Alex divided them into teams. Ghost and Tim worked on stripping the power systems. Stone and Beck handled structural elements. Boren and Old Pike removed everything they could from life support. Alex and Nira worked on the most important part, turning their sector into a giant missile. "This is insane," Nira muttered as she rerouted power conduits. "We're going to launch our own living space at them." "Not at them," Alex corrected. "At their fuel depot. See that cluster of supply ships? That's our target." The plan was simple in theory. They would overload their sector's power systems, disconnect it from the main station, and launch it like a massive torpedo directly at the enemy supply fleet. The explosion would hopefully take out enough fuel ships to cripple the invasion. In practice, it was the most complicated thing Alex had ever attempted. They had to time everything perfectly, coordinate systems that were never meant to work together, and do it all while the station was coming apart around them. The lights went out first. Then the artificial gravity failed, leaving them floating in darkness. The air started getting thin as life support systems shut down one by one. 10 minutes. "To impact," Alex called out, reading numbers from a dying console. "Is everyone ready?" Confirmations came from around the sector. Even Tim, who was terrified of everything, sounded determined. The enemy fleet opened fire on the other sectors first. Through the hull, they could hear the distant explosions as other teams fought and died according to their species' traditions. The Brutari were holding their positions. The Vespians were conducting a fighting retreat. The Mindari were trying to coordinate a telepathic defense. All of them were losing, exactly as expected. 5 minutes, Alex announced. The air was so thin now that talking was difficult. That was when the unexpected happened. The enemy fleet sensors finally noticed what Alex's team was doing. Alarms started going off across the entire enemy formation. Ships began changing course, trying to protect the supply fleet. Weapons that had been firing at the other sectors suddenly swung towards Sector 7. "They're going to shoot us down," Ghost gasped. "Let them try," Alex said. He was getting lightheaded from oxygen deprivation, but he had never felt more alive. The enemy fleet opened up with everything they had. Laser beams and particle cannons lit up space like deadly fireworks. But Alex had calculated their trajectory perfectly. The sector was moving too fast and too erratically for the enemy weapons to track. 1 minute to impact," Alex called out. Through the observation windows, they could see their target getting larger. The enemy supply ships were scattering like frightened fish, but they weren't fast enough. 10 seconds, Alex counted down. 9, 8, 7. The team grabbed onto whatever they could find. 3, 2, 1. The impact was beyond description. Sector 7 slammed into the enemy fuel depot like a hammer hitting glass. The explosion was visible from across the star system. When the light faded, the enemy supply fleet was gone. Without fuel, food, or ammunition, the mighty invasion force became a collection of helpless metal floating in space. For the first time in 800 years, someone had won the crucible. In the observation deck above the simulation, instructors and military officials sat in stunned silence. Finally, Commander Voss spoke. "Shut it down," he ordered. "Shut it all down right now." The debriefing room felt smaller with every passing minute. Alex sat at a metal table surrounded by the most powerful military minds in the galaxy. Admirals, generals, and strategic advisors from dozens of species filled every chair. Some of them looked curious. Others looked angry. All of them looked disturbed. "Explain it again," Admiral Korath demanded. The Vorthon's 6 eyes never left Alex's face. "Step by step, every decision you made." Alex had been explaining for 3 hours. His throat was dry and his hands were starting to shake from exhaustion. But they kept asking the same questions over and over. "We identified the enemy's weakness," Alex said for the 10th time. "Their supply lines were overextended, so we attacked the supply depot instead of engaging the main fleet." "But you sacrificed your entire team," General Wave interjected. The Mindari's mental voice echoed in everyone's head. "You killed your own people to achieve victory." "It was a simulation," Alex protested. "Nobody actually died." That is not the point, Admiral, Korath snapped. The point is that you were willing to make that choice. Your team was willing to follow you. Dr. Zenith, the Academy's chief psychologist, leaned forward. Her species looked like walking plants, with bark-like skin and leaves instead of hair. Tell me, Alex, she said in a voice like wind through trees. When you realized the situation was hopeless, what was your first thought? Alex frowned. That it wasn't actually hopeless, just difficult. Even when faced with odds of 1,000 to 1? Odds are just numbers, Alex said. They don't mean anything until the fight is over. The room went quiet. Several officials exchanged glances that Alex didn't understand. This is exactly what we feared, Dr. Zenith whispered to Admiral Korath. What did you fear? Alex asked. Instead of answering, Admiral Korath activated a holographic display. It showed brain scans, genetic analysis, and psychological profiles. For the past 3 months, Admiral Korath said, we have been studying your species. What we found concerns us greatly. The display changed to show comparative brain activity across different species. Alex could see clear patterns in how various aliens processed stress and danger. Every sapient species in the galaxy has evolved a surrender mechanism, Dr. Zenith explained. When faced with overwhelming odds, our brains trigger a submission response. It prevents unnecessary death and allows for survival through cooperation. Alex stared at the brain scans. And humans? Humans appear to lack this mechanism entirely, Dr. Zenith said quietly. When faced with impossible odds, your brain activity actually increases. You become more creative, more determined, more willing to take extreme risks. Admiral Korath pulled up historical data from Earth. Your species' military history supports this. The Battle of Thermopylae, the Siege of the Alamo, Stalingrad. Again and again, humans faced certain death and chose to fight anyway. Sometimes, you even won, General Wave added, and there was something like fear in her mental voice. Alex didn't understand why everyone looked so worried. Is that bad? It is terrifying, Admiral Korath said bluntly. Do you understand what you represent? A species that cannot be defeated because they refuse to accept defeat. A race that sees impossible odds as merely another problem to solve. The display changed again, showing population statistics and military projections. Humans number in the billions, Dr. Zenith said. Your industrial capacity is growing exponentially. Your technology advances at a rate that frightens our most progressive scientists. And now we discover that you are psychologically incapable of surrendering. What does that mean for the rest of us? Admiral Korath asked. What happens when humanity decides it wants something that belongs to another species? How do we negotiate with beings who don't understand the concept of acceptable losses? Alex felt a chill run down his spine. You're afraid of us. We are terrified of you, Admiral Korath admitted. Not because you are evil or aggressive, but because you are unpredictable in ways that could destabilize the entire galactic order. But I just wanted to graduate, Alex said weakly. And that is the problem, Dr. Zenith said. You approached an unwinnable scenario with the simple assumption that it could be won. That kind of thinking is dangerous when applied to galactic politics, resource disputes, or territorial conflicts. General Wave projected a new set of images into everyone's minds. They showed peaceful alien worlds, trade routes, and diplomatic meetings. Our civilization is built on the understanding that some conflicts cannot be won, she explained. That sometimes compromise and surrender are preferable to total warfare. This understanding has kept peace in the galaxy for thousands of years. Humans threaten that peace, Admiral Korath said. Not through malice, but through their fundamental inability to accept limitations. Alex looked around the room at all the worried faces. So what happens now? Now we must decide what to do with you, Admiral Korath said. And with your species. The discussion that followed happened mostly in languages Alex didn't understand. He caught fragments, debates about containment, about observation, about controlled integration. Nobody seemed to be discussing simply letting him graduate and serve in the fleet. Finally, Admiral Korath turned back to Alex. We have three options. First, you can accept a research position where your unique perspective can be studied safely. Second, you can remain here as a permanent student, helping us understand human psychology better. And the third option? Alex asked. Admiral Korath hesitated. You can leave. Return to Earth. Never speak of what you learned here. Alex thought about his family, about his home, about the dreams that had brought him to the academy in the first place. Then he thought about what he had just learned. His species was feared across the galaxy because they didn't know when to quit, because they looked at impossible problems and saw puzzles to be solved, because they refused to accept that some things couldn't be changed. Can I have some time to think about it? Alex asked. You have until tomorrow morning, Admiral Korath said. But understand this. Whatever you choose will affect not just your future, but the future of human-alien relations for generations to come. That night, Alex sat in his empty dormitory room. Boren and the rest of his team had been isolated for separate questioning. He was alone with the biggest decision of his life. Through his small window, he could see the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, where billions of humans lived and worked and dreamed, completely unaware that the galaxy saw them as a potential threat. Somewhere out there was his sister, still wearing his old-school jacket and believing her. Brother was going to become a galactic hero. Alex smiled for the first time in hours. Maybe she was right. Maybe he was going to be a hero, just not the kind anyone expected. Alex walked into Admiral Korath's office exactly 24 hours after the meeting that changed everything. The Vorthan Admiral was waiting for him, along with Dr. Zenith and several other officials he didn't recognize. Their faces told him nothing about what they were thinking. Have you made your decision? Admiral Korath asked, without preamble. I have, Alex said. He took a deep breath. I choose the fourth option. Dr. Zenith's leafy hair rustled with confusion. There is no fourth option. There is now, Alex said calmly. I formally withdraw from the academy. I reject your research, position, and your permanent student status, and I'm not going to promise to stay quiet about what I learned here. The room erupted in angry voices from multiple species. Alex held up his hand for silence. I'm going home, he continued, and I'm going to tell everyone exactly what happened, how we beat your unbeatable test, how we proved that impossible odds are just another kind of challenge, how the galaxy sees humanity as a threat because we don't know when to give up. Admiral Korath's 6 eyes all focused on Alex like weapons targeting a threat. You cannot be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life, Alex replied. You want to know what humans do when faced with impossible odds? We don't surrender. We don't compromise. We don't accept limitations. We find another way. You will destabilize everything, Dr. Zenith whispered. Thousands of years of peaceful coexistence will be threatened. Alex nodded. Maybe. Or maybe it's time the galaxy learned that some things are worth fighting for, even when the odds are against you. One of the officials Alex didn't recognize stepped forward. He was tall and thin with silver skin that reflected the room's lights. I am Ambassador Zen of the Diplomatic Corps, he said in a voice like crystal chimes. If you return to Earth with this information, it will be seen as an act of aggression by many species. There could be war. Then there will be war, Alex said simply. But it won't be because humans started it. It will be because the galaxy decided to treat us like a threat instead of partners. You are being emotional, General Wave's mental voice echoed in everyone's head. Think logically. What can you accomplish on Earth that you cannot accomplish here? Alex smiled. I can teach other humans what I learned. I can help them understand that the galaxy isn't a place of wonder and Cooperation. It's a place where different species are so afraid of each other that they've forgotten how to take risks. And what will you teach them? Admiral Korath asked dangerously. I'll teach them that the rest of the galaxy has been playing it safe, for so long that they've forgotten how to win, Alex said. I'll teach them that being impossible to defeat isn't something to apologize for, it's something to be proud of. Dr. Zenith stood up abruptly. You cannot be allowed to leave with this information. Are you going to stop me? Alex asked. Are you going to prove everything I just said about human-alien relations by holding me prisoner? The room fell silent. Alex could see the calculation happening behind their eyes. If they detained him, they would validate every fear about alien intentions toward humanity. If they let him go, they would lose control of the situation entirely. There is another consideration, Ambassador Zen said carefully. Your team, they were questioned extensively. Some of them expressed interest in learning more about human tactical thinking. Alex felt a surge of hope. Where are they? Confined pending our decision about what to do with them, Admiral Korath admitted. Let me see them, Alex demanded. That is not possible. Then we have a problem, Alex said, because I'm not leaving without them. Admiral Korath's expression darkened. You are in no position to make demands. Actually, I am, Alex said. Because you need me more than I need you. You want to understand human psychology? You want to figure out how to deal with my species? Then you need me cooperative, not resentful. He stood up and walked to the window overlooking the Academy's main courtyard. Below, he could see cadets from dozens of species practicing the same drills, following the same patterns, thinking the same thoughts their ancestors had thought for thousands of years. Look at them, Alex said. Perfect soldiers following perfect doctrines. They know exactly what to do in every situation because their species figured it out long ago. He turned back to face the room full of worried officials. But what happens when they face something new, something their ancestors never encountered? They freeze. They fall back on old patterns that don't work. They lose. And humans? Dr. Zenith asked quietly. Humans improvise, Alex said. We adapt. We figure it out as we go. That's what made you so uncomfortable about the Crucible. It wasn't that we won. It was that we won using methods none of you had ever seen before. Admiral Korath was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, What do you want? I want my team released, Alex said firmly. I want them given the choice to come with me or stay. Here. And I want safe passage back to Earth for anyone who chooses to leave. Impossible, Admiral Korath said immediately. Then we're done here, Alex said, heading for the door. Wait, the voice came from Ambassador Zen. What assurance do we have that you will not use this knowledge to promote hostility toward other species? Alex stopped and turned around. You don't. But consider this. Right now, humans don't know that the galaxy fears them. They still think of aliens as potential friends and allies. If you let me go home peacefully with my friends, maybe that attitude continues. And if we do not, Dr. Zenith asked, then humans learn that the galaxy sees them as a threat, Alex said, and they start acting like one. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. After several minutes of whispered conversations in languages Alex didn't understand, Admiral Korath spoke. We will release your team. Those who wish to accompany you may do so. But understand this, if humanity becomes aggressive toward other species, the blood will be on your hands. If humanity becomes aggressive, Alex replied, it will be because the galaxy made them that way. 2 hours later, Alex stood in the Academy's main hangar bay beside a small transport ship. His entire team had chosen to come with him. Even Nira, who had never wanted to leave her peaceful homeworld, decided she wanted to see what Earth was like. I still think you are crazy, Boren said as they loaded their few possessions onto the ship. Probably, Alex agreed. But it's the good kind of crazy. Old Pike tapped his stone fingers against the ship's hull. What will you do when you reach Earth? Alex looked back at the academy one last time. Through the transparent aluminum walls, he could see other cadets going through their training, learning their doctrines, following their rules, accepting their limitations. "I'm going to start a school," Alex said. "A place where humans can learn what we learned here. That impossible. Odds are just another kind of problem. That surrender isn't the only option when facing defeat. That sometimes the best way to win is to refuse to lose." "And if the galaxy objects?" Ghost asked, shimmering into visibility. Alex smiled as he climbed aboard the transport. "Then they'll learn what happens when you try to tell humans they can't do something." The ship lifted off smoothly, carrying them away from the academy and toward Earth. Behind them, Alex knew, emergency meetings were already being called. Military leaders across the galaxy would be discussing containment strategies, defensive, preparations, and diplomatic solutions. They were afraid of what humans might become now that they knew the truth about galactic society. They were terrified of a species that saw impossible odds as merely another challenge to overcome. As Earth grew larger in the view screen, Alex felt a mixture of excitement and determination. He was coming home, but not as the failed cadet many expected. He was returning as something the galaxy had never seen before, a human who understood exactly what made his species dangerous. "Alex," Tim said, his damaged wings fluttering nervously. "What if you're wrong? What if teaching humans to think like you do causes more harm than good?" Alex watched his homeworld rotate slowly below them. Somewhere down there, his sister was probably still wearing his old school jacket, still believing her brother would become something special. "Then at least we'll face the consequences on our own terms," Alex said, "instead of letting someone else decide our fate for us." The transport touched down at the spaceport, where Alex's journey had begun months ago. As the hatch opened and Earth's familiar air filled his lungs, Alex realized he was no longer the same person who had left. He had gone to the academy as a human trying to fit into the galaxy's vision of what a soldier should be. He was returning as a human who understood that the galaxy's vision was limited by fear and tradition. Walking down the ramp with his alien friends beside him, Alex Turner looked like just another failed cadet coming home. But appearances could be deceiving. The galaxy had tried to contain humanity's potential by offering them a place in the existing order. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous. A human who knew exactly why the rest of the galaxy was afraid of his species. And now he was going home to teach others. The real shock, Alex realized, wasn't that he had left the academy. The real shock was going to be what humanity did next.